When I announced my book project a few days ago, I said I would try to give 2 updates a week. So I'm going to give a bit of a writing update, what the first week was like, and then I want to talk about some of my favorite sci-fi authors and why I think they're important storytellers for our time. I have been able to consistently write for the last 5 days, but only for about 2 hours of writing a day. I currently have around 4,500 words written in a span of 4 chapters-ish, but none of those are complete. Given the structure of my story, I have to bounce around to different timelines and different parts in the story in order to keep the continuity of it straight in my mind and thinking. And I have settled on a chapter structure for now, where the first section is from the main timeline. It then does a flashback or flash forward that sort of helps explain something about that event, and then it goes back to the main timeline to kind of wrap up the chapter. And so far, this story structure is working. I really like it. I'm not sure if it's going to stay working the whole time. I may have to rearrange, but for now, it's working pretty well. One of the things specific to writing that I'm struggling with is keeping a consistent point of view in each scene. I notice I have a habit of starting to write in third person observer perspective, and then I end up giving interiority, which pulls into the first person, and it kind of can sometimes feel off. And it really bothers me when other people write that way, so I don't want to do that. But right now, I'm just trying to get it down as much of it as I can with the hope that I can rework and smooth it out, flow later, and not so much worry about it. And all in all, it's felt really productive. I'm feeling good about what I've written and being able to stop and start when I need to write, which has been an issue I've had in the past. However, I'm still only about half as many words. I need to have like 8,300 something to kind of get to the 50,000 in the month. So I'm going to have to pick up the pace next week. Since I've been influenced so much by science fiction authors in my life, even in helping me think through my academic philosophical work, I wanted to discuss a few of these storytellers. The order is going to be roughly chronological to when I read them, when I found out about them, and not so much a ranking or top to bottom kind of thing. It's a non-exhaustive list of these influential authors, including C.S. Lewis, Isaac Asimov, Ray Bradbury, Frank Herbert, Orson Scott Card, George Orwell, Aldous Huxley, Stephen Lawhead, Jose Saramago, Ursula Le Guin, Octavia Butler, and Cory Doctorow. Before I continue, I do want to point out a few things about this list. I know that it's primarily dead white guys. Most of these authors were the ones shown to me early in my life, and it wasn't that I didn't want to read, say, a black woman. It was that I wasn't told then that there were women and authors of color writing throughout those time periods. The world of sci-fi and really fiction in general is a male-dominated world, like most things in our society. I'm not trying to make an excuse, but rather to point out that I know that reality exists, and I want to be part of continuing to change that. I've been seeking out voices and stories from beyond the white male worldview, and perhaps I'll make another video highlighting some of those authors that I've read and learned from more recently. Further, I believe that we need white men and women to do better with what they do right, how they characterize people who look or sound different, and to learn from those mistakes and improve so that we can build a world that is flourishing for all human and non-human communities, and not just for the ones we already know. My introduction to this world of fiction was from my dad reading C.S. Lewis and Isaac Asimov to me before I could even read. I remember the feeling of walking around the snow in Narnia, being on wild adventures with Norby, the very messed up robot in Asimov's Norby Chronicles. For many years, my favorite author was Isaac Asimov. I loved imagining myself in his worlds, talking with robots or fighting against rotten empires thousands of years in our future. I also love that these two authors asked us deep questions about the state of the world and our place in it, which is a common theme amongst most science fiction. Later in life, I would come to really appreciate C.S. Lewis's ability to write philosophical and theological nonfiction and then write those themes and beliefs in his fiction work. This idea has stuck with me even if I don't always agree with his conclusions. As a child in the 80s and 90s, I grew up with the hope that we would develop into a technologically advanced world.
What the hell happened here?
Through Asimov's writing, and placed right at the forefront of all of his work, is the question about what to do with technology and to ask who it really serves. He created the 3 laws of robotics that researchers even today are dealing with. He wrote the short stories that would later be known as I, Robot in the 1940s, the original book being published in 1950. He was writing these stories while watching technology advance at unprecedented levels during World War II, and most of which was even kept a secret until the 60s or 70s that he wouldn't have seen. He saw the combination of machine that computes and the machine that does work, and recognized that it would need guardrails, because technological advancements without ethics will eventually come to harm the humans that created it. And maybe that's relevant today. I don't know. It's just a thought. Next, I would find authors such as Orson Scott Card and Frank Herbert, along with many of the earlier sci-fi authors. Ender's Game was assigned to us in school, and I was enraptured by the ability to show a character's development in very possible future worlds, while also posing questions about propaganda, consent, and grief. Ray Bradbury was another one from around that time in my life that I really loved. I love that he could craft a short story to take you through a range of emotions and then drop a twist right at the end that radically shifted that perspective and brought to light many similar questions about humanity and our place in the cosmos. George Orwell and Aldous Huxley both showed how political messages can be beneficially written in and through storytelling, as well as the cautionary tales of how that message can be warped into propaganda for empire and control of its subjects. That might be a little bit relevant these days too. Stephen Lawhead caught my attention in college when a friend showed me his series based around Celtic legends, known as the Albion Trilogy, and I loved so much how he brought the past to life through new stories. His stories had a deep knowledge of the past, almost more like a historian, but then was crafted in a way that brought in theology, philosophy, and science. As I learned more about him, I found out he had gone to seminary. He had managed a Christian rock band and founded a music label all before he started writing in the 1970s and 80s. At that time, when I found him, I really loved how he was able to weave together these concepts into an engaging story, but without also trying to push people as sort of a conversion thing. Unfortunately, that would begin to change many years later when he fell victim to propaganda of the supremacy of the European culture and ways of life, and where he lost me as a loyal reader. However, there were two series that stood out the most. One is from his early writings in 1980s called Empyrean 1 and 2, and then a series in the early 2010s known as Bright Empires. And to be frank, Bright Empires series made me almost not continue the earliest version of the book. I had the idea for the mechanics of time travel that what I would use for this current book before I had read that series. And the mechanics were so similar that I just gave up on the idea until the bigger story started taking shape around that mechanics, which only was about 4 or 5 years ago. And to me, Lawhead stands an example of someone with a clear gift for storytelling and world building, but who ends up not learning from their own work and plummets into a harmful worldview that tanks their legacy. I came across Ursula Le Guin and Octavia Butler much later than I should have, but they still had a great impact on me and how I think about the world and how stories can lead to change in the world. A distinctive feature for both of these women is that their stories are built around characters. They feel like they should be real people. Don't get me wrong, they both build interesting and creative worlds, very imaginative takes on our reality and what it could look like if one little something was different. But it's the depth of their characters that draw the reader into their lives to a greater degree than most other science fiction authors. The minute I met Lauren Olomina in the compound in Pasadena, I wanted to follow her wherever she went. I wanted to live in Acorn and create a flourishing future with a like-minded community. Octavia Butler, through the story she told, helped me to see a glimpse into what it is like to live as a Black woman in this country, and I believe she is one of the most important authors in speculative fiction from the last 40 years. And last, I would like to give honorable mention to Cory Doctorow, who I think is my favorite living sci-fi or speculative fiction author. Doctorow's work is aspirational for me because he is grappling with the realities we face today as a white man who is working towards a better world for all people. His writing is more ideologically clear than many in his genre are comfortable, which is also what makes it such a bold choice for shining light on the intersection of the issues of race, class, religion, economics, environmental collapse, and the place of technology in society today. We share a very similar starting point in those regards, and I don't think he always does it the best way, or at least the way that I would do it. But the importance of writers like him is to show us that change and growth are possible, even though they're often messy projects. In this sense, Dr. O is a gateway into politically progressive storytelling and worldview, and I hope that I'm able to pull off a similar approach to telling stories from our future to help us rethink the present. I could go on much longer about these authors and many more. Stop it, please, I beg you! But I hope this brief look at some of the influential authors for me has helped you understand where I'm coming from in writing my novel, and also in the importance of worldviews, beliefs, and philosophies of those telling the stories. I actually think I might make some videos in the future doing a deep dive on some of these authors and the philosophical questions they pose through their work, to show us how we can read fiction, or watch fiction for that matter, to learn deep truths about the world and our place in it. Thanks for listening, and don't forget, no kings, no masters.